Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show. I know. I thought we were getting away from politics for a minute, but lo and behold, the spotlight is once again on Washington, D.C. And how can we talk about what's happening in Washington without having Khari Mosley back on the show again? Welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me once again. It's great to see you.
You know, I thought that things were like calming down in Washington, but they're not at all, because all of a sudden, last time you were here, we were kind of unpacking what happened during the insurrection. And then all of a sudden, they started talking about the possibility of another potential insurrection this past week in Washington, D.C. I was kind of caught off guard by that. Should I have been even the possibility that they would talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it really seems to be a continuation of the theories that have been the conspiracy theories that have been a part of the QAnon movement. You know, it kind of started with the idea that President Trump was going to take the reins of the government again during the inauguration on January 20th. And when that didn't happen, it appears many of them thought that, this takeover of the government by President Trump would then happen on March 4th, which was the traditional inauguration day prior to the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration. And it was actually during the Great Depression that they actually moved up the inauguration of January 20th, because during that 1932 election from November to March, it was such a long period of time to transition governments in a time of national crisis. So they were looking back at that date and saying, well, it didn't happen on January 20th. He's going to take over on the traditional pre-1932 inauguration date.
So, I mean, are these things that are, I mean, did I just like miss that in history? I mean, like all of a sudden, just talking about the fact that the former president could be sworn in on this date. I mean, we've never talked about that in history before, have we? In terms of a former president coming back to be sworn in again? Are these unique? Is this unique to this period in history?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the March 4th date was a traditional date prior to 1932, but this talk of a President Trump, taking the reins of government once again, almost like sounds like something from a movie, like a fantasy, like a Marvel comic, kind of scenario, and it's all part, of this QAnon movement, that believes that there's a deep state, that believes that former President Trump is this some sort of a hero, almost like I said, like almost like a Marvel book comic script, that he is the sole protector and guardian, of American democracy and what's right. And there's this person inside the American government named Q that is providing, these secrets, and part of what they believed, was that, on March 4th, the government was going to be taken over again by who they believe is the true winner of the 2020 general election.
Now, I will say this, and I apologize. I didn't tell you I was going to mention this before the fact, but last weekend, I guess a week ago, when we saw the former president for the first time actually come out and speak, I guess it was in Florida, and I saw them do a shot of the audience there. I did see a number of African-American males in that audience. And I thought about the conversation that you and I had some time ago. I was kind of surprised by the number of African-American males that were present in that audience that day, which I guess it just kind of spoke to what you and I talked about, that the former president does have more African-American male support than I thought.
Absolutely, and we definitely, see it amongst African-American men who are skeptic of the COVID-19 pandemic. You see a large amount of support for Donald Trump amongst that group, not across the board, but a higher percentage of African-American men who are skeptic of the COVID-19 pandemic seem to lean in the direction of Trump. And also you see it around other cultural issues, like the current debate around trans girls participating in sports, with girls that were born biologically girls. there's a lot of men who seem to be opposed by that, and that seems to be a very, it seems like it'd be an issue that's a very hot sticking point with the group of people, as well as I think those who are opposed to this idea of cancel culture. There's definitely men in the African American community who do feel like many others that maybe cancel culture, has gone too far. So I believe within that group, of people, you're going to have a higher percentage of those who may lean to some of the philosophical ideas that President Trump and many of his supporters have espoused over the last 4 years.
Have embraced indeed. So, okay, those are all things. None of that is anything about what I invited you to come on the show to talk about. So I apologize for that. Tell you what, let's take a commercial break. When we come back, then I want to get down to the business, and that is looking at voting rights. And I think there is a growing concern that there is a movement going on across the country. Not so much, it hasn't gotten to Pennsylvania yet, but there is a growing concern that there is a movement going on in other states to try to disenfranchise Black and brown voters. That's what we're going to talk about. We'll do that after this commercial break. So stick around. We have a lot more to do when the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show continues. We'll be right back.